Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to host you at our webinar today. We have more than 250 attendees registered, and also after our webinar, we will distribute the record among all our contacts and colleagues. For those who see me for the first time, my name is Nitsevych. I'm a partner at international law firm Interlegal. We have been working for 26 years providing legal services to transport, shipping, and commodity people. We have 6 offices in the Black Sea. The headquarters are in Odessa, and we were very lucky to open our office in Kyiv in January this year. So I'm now in Odessa, which is more or less a safe place now. You know that there is an ongoing war in Ukraine. We faced an aggression from Russian Federation. This war is real, with heavy weapons, with tanks, with artillery, with huge losses among civilians and military people. For us, the task is to bring to our colleagues, friends, and professionals the views from the professional point of view. What's going on with business in Ukraine, in Ukrainian ports, and in import-export operations. With us today, we have 5 speakers. The first one will be Andrii Kuzmenko, a known professional in the shipping container business. He's director of CIM Integrated Shipping Ukraine. The next one will be Nikolay Gorbachov. He's the president of Ukrainian Grain Association. Then we will have 2 speakers from Pure Shipping. This is Gennadiy Ivanov, director of Kronosbulkers. It's a time charter operating company, and Maksym Khaulin, who is a director of Intresco shipping company, a ship owner working in the Black Sea. And the last speaker will be my colleague Karyna Gorovaya, head of our Ukrainian practice. She will cover some legal aspects, what we do for our clients now in Ukraine. After each speaker gives his ideas and comments what's going on, there will be no presentations today. It's an open talk, and after each speaker finishes his ideas and comments, we will have short questions and answers. Thank you very much. During applying to get registered, many of you provided with questions, so we will be pleased to answer these questions, to give you a full picture, answering what really bothers you doing business here in Ukraine. Of course, we ask everyone to share the links of our webinar in social media in order to attract more people to our webinar. It's again, it's open, and one can see it not only on the Zoom, but also now on Facebook and on the YouTube. So let's start. Andrii, the floor is yours. Please describe with your own words how the war affected Ukrainian seaports and container shipping business. Please unmute, Andrii.
Sorry. I got some problems with the video camera on my laptop, so that's why I had to shift into the mobile phone. Well, anyway, thank you, Arthur. Thank you for your introduction. Yes, I remember our last conversation and last webinar, which was not that long ago. And there was also a discussion in respect of what or whether it is really possible that Russia would attack Ukraine and what will
Andrii,
be...
I'm sorry, we see you 90% angle. Can you yeah, something like that. Oh, bravo, Andrii.
Okay. Well, as I said, we've been discussing the possibility for the Russian aggression against Ukraine some time ago, and obviously it was clear that the ports will become the primary target of it, either the hard target, meaning the specific destruction of the port's infrastructure, or the soft target, meaning at least the blockade of the port and impossibility for Ukraine to use its foreign trade for at least to get the hard currency into the country, and moreover to get any kind of the help via the shipping. So well, that's happened right since 24th of February. The situation with the Ukrainian port is well, basically disastrous in terms that they are not working. We got 94 or almost 100 foreign flagged vessels which are stuck in Ukraine. The very few ships had managed to sail out of the country on the 24th. We have been very lucky that 8 in the morning we have managed to get out our vessel Bach out of the Odessa port. She had to cut and run, leaving approximately 30, if I'm not mistaken, containers behind. But other than that, we were very lucky, and the ships which were sailing later the same day had been already attacked in the vicinity of the Zmeiny Island during the Russian assault on Ukrainian horizon over there. So right now, situation is clear in terms that the ports will not be working until at least the hot phase of the hostilities are over. On other hand, what I'm afraid of is that because the blockade of the Ukrainian ports, it's a very cheap exercise for the Russian forces and extremely costly exercise for Ukrainian economy, I'm afraid that it will be the blockade will be lifted probably in the very last sequence after the hostilities even over, because they can effectively block the ports from the Crimea, so they don't need any kind of the major land or the air supported operation. Plus, everyone in the shipping community had already been seeing all of the news about the floating mines and the mines which had been allegedly installed, this very curious number of 420 miles, which suddenly harbor master of the Sochi port or Novorossiysk port, whatever, identified in the Ukrainian waters. It doesn't really matter whether these mines were Ukrainian as a defensive mine fields or they are Russians as an offensive mine fields. In any way, the shipping will be possible only after the minesweepers of some countries will be able to confirm that the fair waters are free. And because obviously Ukrainian minesweepers will not be able to operate under the threat of the Russian Navy and the Air Force, then for Ukraine it is only possible only after the complete cessation of the hostilities. Which again, as I said, the blockade of the port would probably be the very last event. And moreover, I would actually presume that it might be also the part of the final blackmail, something like, okay, the Putin will agree to open Ukrainian ports only after whatever the package of the sanctions is lifted against Russia. And obviously, because the lifting of the sanctions is definitely not something which everyone wants at this current stage, then I'm afraid that really opening of the ports, it's extremely distant possibility, unless by some miracle the war is suddenly turned to favor of the Ukraine, or Mr. Putin died somewhere in his bunker in the Urals. So for the ports, it's clear. On the other hand, the ports are Ukrainian ports are extremely lucky that actually the damage to the infrastructure on the larger scale had been limited, except of the strikes on Nikolay and except of the strikes, well, clearly the strikes against Mariupol. The other ports of the big Odessa are more or less intact. Obviously, it doesn't mean that it will stay this way. It's just could be that they are lower on the list of the priorities of the target list for the Russian armed forces. And on the other hand, obviously, it also shows that, well, first of all, the value of the ports right now when they are blocked is close to zero. So there is no sense to damage the property which is not working for the support of your enemy's victory. On the second hand, it might also show that the Russians are still considering to take over this area, and obviously they don't want to damage the infrastructure which they want to use. So on the grand scale, we have two situations. So the first situation, it's situation with the ports. They will resume working only after the cessation of the hostilities and after complete cessation. That's what would be my expectation. On the other hand, we have 90 plus foreign flagged vessels, which are obviously in the very dire situation, and the crews and the foodstuffs and the fuel and everything. So that's where probably one of my initial assumptions were wrong. Actually, I was expecting that the Russia would give something like 24 hours for the vessels to leave the ports before starting the actual hostilities. Well, they didn't do it. And obviously right now it's not seriously possible to discuss any kind of the corridors or fairways or humanitarian operation, because none of the hostile parties, neither Ukraine nor Russia, would want to really disclose the situation with the mines, saying that, yeah, okay, we have mines over here, but here is the channel, or vice versa. So I'm afraid that these ships are really stuck in Ukraine until the end of the hostilities. And the best what can be done, it's either supplying them from the shore with all of the food and the other utilities, or basically putting the ships into the kind of the mothballing situation and evacuating the crews out of the country if that's possible, or for those ports which are possible. So, in respect of our situation, if I may be a little bit more specific, as many of the other lines, Zim had stopped the containers on the way to Ukraine in the last transshipment port. So for us, it's either Yarymcha or Haifa. We didn't move containers to Constanța because at the time it was extremely difficult from the standpoint of the customs legislation. And then later on, or immediately later on, after other lines had brought extreme number of the import containers to Constanța, then this port became completely congested. So there were physically no space to discharge anything else. Until now, the Zim had not terminated its bills of lading in inbound to Ukraine. But obviously, because everyone hoped that the conflict would kind of be resolved, well, obviously, the short resolution could be only very negative for Ukraine. But anyway, right now, everyone is seeing that it will not be resolved in next months or 2 months. Then it means that the liner carrier will hardly be able to support current situation of the bills of lading, which are still in transit. So most likely in the nearest future, I mean 1 to 3 weeks, we will make a decision about the termination of the bills of lading. And so the customers are really requested to choose their options and make a decision about the COD, about change of the destination, and which port they want their boxes to be delivered. We will soon be able to offer the COD to Constanța, which is the most logical solution, but obviously logistically it's not the simplest one. First, because the customs procedure, as I said before, are extremely cumbersome. Secondly, because there are a lot of costs associated with the moving of the containers via Constanța, including scanning, the customs searches and whatever. And plus, obviously, depending on the destination of the import container in Ukraine, the logistic of driving or railing container from Constanța is also not really a simple one. So the costs are high. But, well, we are talking about the limited number of the containers. So anyway, I hope that all of the customers, well, of all of the shipping lines, not only of ours, would make a decision about the COD of the boxes or about acceptance of the cargo in Turkey or whatever, anywhere else, and then understanding what to do with it, selling it in other place or rerouting or anything like this. So this is the situation in general for the Ukrainian ports, for the ships, and for the container carriers in Ukraine.
Andrii, thank you very much. I would like probably to support what Andrii was saying. It's not a pessimism. It's a quite realistic, I would say, approach. That's how it is. Yes. Probably one more question is related to other shipping container lines. Do they provide the same approach like Zim, or trying to be, let's say, more proactive as for their Ukrainian customers?
Well, yeah, for the biggest difference is among those lines who really managed to deliver their boxes and discharge them in Constanța. That's, if I'm not mistaken, that's MSC and Maersk. And, well, their customers had been, whatever, relatively lucky in this respect, because they don't need, like ours now, to move goods from Turkey into Constanța. On the other hand, obviously, the situation with the terminal is really difficult. From what we know is that Ukrainian cargo is put into the separate reach stackers operated stacks, and taking the specific box out of it requires paying absolute astronomical costs per move for the reach stackers. While again, right now, if we would move our containers from Istanbul to Constanța, then for about 1 week, 10 days, they will stay in the general RTG accessible stack. So the release of these containers for the trucks would be much easier and less costly. But then on the other hand, our customers will have to pay the COD. So anyway, the situation is difficult in terms of financing. From what I also know, only one line so far had already terminated the bills of lading, which are on the way. So it's not yet the general market response, but obviously I'm afraid that it is inevitable, because after 1 month and a half, and without any visible possibility to restore the services of the shipping lines into Odessa, it's really not fair, neither to the customers nor to the shipping line, to keep the bills of lading and pretend that, look guys, when everything is over, I will deliver it to you. Yeah, but if it's in whatever, half a year from now, then probably that's much fairer to terminate the bills of lading. The issue is obviously is that the customers will have to deal with the number of the different terminals, and that would involve them finding the agents and forwarders in whatever, Romania, in Turkey, in Piraeus, in Haifa, maybe even in Spain or in Egypt, in various countries, and then dealing with the various storage rates in these ports, because these boxes will now shift from the transshipment status into the import status. And while a lot of the ports have been really helpful and they've been canceling the storage charges for some time, obviously it will not be forever. Our line, just as any others, we have canceled the demurrage until now, and most likely the demurrage will be canceled until 1st of May. But again, obviously, it will not be possible to cancel it automatically for half a year, 2 years, 3 years. God forbid this war might take. So again, the best advice for the customers to make up their minds and get their boxes as soon as possible to reduce the potential damages in terms of the finance.
There was information in the media that it's theoretically it is possible to launch some exports in containers using the Danube ports.
Yeah, well, really,
is it realistic, or?
Arthur, we've been talking mostly about inbound containers, because that's where the line's responsibility already is. But in terms of the export, yes, I have to admit that our customers, they had been really active first in getting out even the import containers which had been already in Ukraine, but also getting out the export containers which had been on the terminals. So quite a lot of these boxes had been taken out of the ports, unstuffed, and returned back empty. And then the goods will, or were somehow finding their way to Europe via the trucks or via any other ways. In terms of the future exports, we have already booked more than 60 containers when the customers are picking up the empty boxes from the terminals in Ukraine, in Odessa, then stuffing them in Ukraine, and then moving them by truck to Constanța. So we have already had a few ships loading these boxes. And as long as we have empty containers, and well, obviously a lot of lines have a lot of the empty containers right now in Ukraine. So, and obviously the volume of this export is rather limited, but we have customers who are ready to ship even a few hundred containers within the next few months. So, well, as long as lines have the empty equipment, then this service will be supported. For now, the easiest way and the simplest way, but not the cheapest one, is to truck the containers to Constanța, plus the need for finding the capable truckers and the drivers is also there. On top of that, there are a few other intermodal ways of deliver. One, the oldest one, which was offered immediately, but as far as I know, it's still not yet working properly, is a train from Ternopil ZCT terminal to Constanța port. That would be the great way, and the price was relatively acceptable. But as I said, I'm not sure if it's already working. The second one, there were talks about railing or trucking to Ismail and then using the barge to Constanța. As far as I know, we know again also it's not yet working because there are some kind of the immense problems in terms of the Romanian customs legislation for sending the barge from the Constanța to Ismail or to any other port. Again, in terms of the customs declarations, whether it's in transit, is it internal European delivery, is it something else? So they had a huge problem, and this customs declaration, they needs to be fixed per box, not per barge. So that's why it's a huge bureaucratic problem. Recently, there was another way which was suggested for Ukrainian exports or imports to get out of the country. There was a suggestion to run a rail service from Odessa to Trieste via terminal in Slovakia, which also could be quite interesting because, Trieste, it's Adriatic port, which has quite a good connections, and Koper, which has got even better connections, is also close by. Unfortunately, the cost is relatively high. It's from 1,200 euros to 1,900 euros for 2020, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, it is high. So whether this way will be taken by the Ukrainian exporters, it's remains to be seen. Because obviously the main destinations which are now accessible, it's the origin, it's west of the country. So in terms of what do they produce, not the eastern side of the country where we have more active hostilities. Also, for all of the lines, the big issue is to get hold of all of their empty containers, which had been scattered across of the country. Also, I mean, we had some boxes in Kharkiv area, in Zaporizhia, in everywhere, where the hostilities had been extremely hot, and we are not yet sure if these containers would be able to return back. So again, the import route into Ukraine, especially for the boxes which are on the way, is more or less visible via Constanța. It's expensive, but it's visible. For the exports, there could be the number of the opportunities, either via Poland or via Constanța again, or via Italy or Koper. But these routes really needs to be checked whether or not the price of the cargo affords it.
Andrii, thank you very much. No more questions from our side. Thank you for joining us and becoming the headliner. Okay, I think next time we'll be more optimistic. We're looking forward to it, of course.
Depends when the next time will be.
Yes, we'll see.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Nikolay, the floor is yours. Nikolay Gorbachov, president of the Ukrainian Grain Association. Please.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Artur, for organizing such a good meeting. And I would like to say that we continue to work. We try to find the way how we can help to our country in this difficult time. And of course, for us, it's difficult. And Andrii explained quite good all problem with the ports which are blocked. And I will just remind that all our export grain was before about 90% or 95% through the Black Sea ports, or about 5% from Azov port, and only 1-2% by railway to the Europe directly. And now we face on the situation where we have to export all our stocks through the railway crossing border point. We've got 13 crossing border point with our Western partner. It's with Romania, Moldova, with Slovakia, Hungary. But unfortunately, we cannot load the same volume as we did to the port. If we could bring to the port about 6 million tons per month, for the moment, in theory, we can export to the Europe only in 10 times less, about 600,000 tons. And I will underline that it's in theory, because on a practice during the March, through the all crossing border point, we could move only 220,000 tons. It's 3 times less than our potential for the moment. At the same time, we can export through this Ismail port, Uсть-Dunaj port, but again, this port didn't work properly on the past 10-15 years. That's why it's difficult to start to work there. We have to renovate equipment there. We have to make some investment to improve all procedures. On the same time, we've got difficulties with the documents because, for example, the phytosanitary certificate, which is valid only 15 days, we should send each of the railway car with a phytosanitary certificate. And sometimes the wagons can wait on a queue more than 15 days. And what we should do on this time? We have to make additional checking and additional issue the certificate. How to do this? That's why we continue to work with our Ministry of Agriculture and Ministry of Economy, with phytosanitary inspection, veterinary inspection, how to improve the procedure and what we have to do. No one from us knows when this war will finish. I'm sure we will win, but when? And we have to be ready to export new crop through in new situation to the Europe directly by railway or by barges. And I just prepared the presentation 2 days ago, and I can share it for you with you, and I will try. But I see it's impossible for the moment because the organizer just cannot give the right to me to share the screen.
Yeah, but Nikolay, yes, so because the idea was just on to arrange a stream.
Okay,
but,
no problem.
We can do it afterwards.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
together with links to our webinar, we can share and send it by email to all registered attendees. If you allow us to share a few slides.
Of course, Artur. I will send to you this presentation, and you can share with all participants. Now, farmers has to go to the field. It's planting time, and from our information, they've got enough seeds. Of course, it's a bit worse quality than it should be. They've got less fertilizer, and their fields sometime mined, and our military guys has to check the fields before farmers can come to the fields. But in any case, we expect that we can have about 63 million tons grain and oilseeds on the next crop. I just will remind that on a previous crop we had 106 million tons. It's decreasing about 40%. First of all, we'll decrease planting area, seeds area, from 25 million hectares of land to somewhere 18 million hectares of land. And mostly it's because some regions are occupied. It's Kherson, part of the Zaporizhia, and Donetsk and Lugansk, where farmers unfortunately cannot do anything, and they cannot go to the fields. On the domestic consumption, we expect a bit decreasing because the situation which we face on, about 10-15% from our population move abroad, and these people will not consume on the territory of Ukraine anything. And the same situation with the cattle business, for example, it will be decreasing in any case, because farmers who produce the meat, they cannot sell their products for the moment, and because most of consumers move out from Ukraine, and the grain price moved up, and to produce compound now just unprofitable, and farmers just will cut the numbers of their cows and pigs, and we will see the decreasing of domestic consumption. But in any case, we are planning to export the grain, and in our expectation, we can export about 30-32 million tons on the next season. Question will be how we will improve the logistics situation. For the moment, we, like Ukrainian Grain Association, we work with Ministry of Infrastructure and Ministry of Agriculture, with our members of association, how we can help to our country. Some of the company start to build a new transloading terminal. Ukrainian railway company, they say that they will increase number of crossing border wagons every day, because they can install from their own stocks this lifting equipment, where we have to change the axles for the wagons. And of course, business adaptive, and I am sure in 2 months we will see new transloading terminals, small terminals, we call it Skavchek, and it will help to business. If we'll talk about with Dunaysk and Ismail, for the moment, in our expectation, we can load there about 400,000 tons of grain, and we just start. The biggest problem which we face on, it's the deficit of barges, because most of our barges are blocked on Nikolaev and Kherson, and we have to use European barges. And to come during the war to our country for European barges, as for European railway cars, it's too dangerous. That's why Cabinet of Ministers, they made the special decree, and they will, Ukraine, like a state, will cover all damages if it will happen during the transportation of grain. But procedure now on a cabinet of ministers, and we are working how to improve it, because we would like to get it like a standard insurance. And in this case, we have to work with the banks. We start to work with EBRD, how to improve this guarantee. On the same time, Ukrainian Grain Association, we are a member of the COSERAL association, and we give our view what we have to do with the certificate. Sometimes we have to prolong the certificate, sometimes we have to cancel some procedure. For example, when now wagons crossing border somewhere on Vadul-Siret, we're on a railway cars, the custom and railway, they are responsible to check full package of documents, including a veterinary certificate for corn, for example. But study for the Ukraine to issue the veterinary certificate, we need at least 7 days, because we need to check for the salmonella. It's a minimum 5-6 days. And why for? If this grain is moving to Constanza, we can bring the certificate directly to Constanța, for example, or when the phytosanitary certificate valid only 15 days, and why we cannot prolong this certificate? What will happen if this certificate will be valid for 45 days, for example? Why we have to use arbitrage for this procedure? We continue to work on this, and I do believe that in 1.5–2 months maximum, we will have the option throughput capacity on western border points about 1.5–2 million tons grain per month. Of course, it's not 6 million, but it will be much better than, in 3 times better than we have now. And generally, that's it. Thank you.
Nikolay, thank you very much. You described the let's say the sowing issues. What about storage?
Okay, for the storage, I can tell that we've got stocks which we could export. For example, we expected in this season the biggest export ever for the whole history in Ukraine. We could export 70 million tons, but unfortunately we did only 43 before the war. And we still have stocks about 25–27 million tons of grain. And it's like a reserve. It's okay, it's good, but we can sell it. And with such price of the grain, it can be $6–7 billion. And we can earn this money. And of course, this grain now stored on inland silo mainly. Sometime on a port, but totally on a port about 2 million tons, not more. But on the inland silo, the most volume. I hope we will export on the next 4 months before the new season about 8 million tons, and in this case we'll have less stocks. And with the new production of grain, I hope we will have enough storage capacity, because in Ukraine we've got about 1,200 inland silos, which can store about 55 million tons of grain. Additionally, each of the farm, we've got some storage. In our expectation, it's about 20 million tons. That's why I think it will not be a problem to store this grain. About damages of inland silo, we've got signals from 10 inland silos that they were damaged by rockets or by others weapons, and we know that at least 2 silos were on the territory which now occupied on the eastern part of Ukraine.
One more question related to future investment into agricultural business in Ukraine, especially into the land. Of course, from, let's say, from the insurance point of view, or just as risk management, we are going to face totally new challenges for foreign investors. And now it's not clear how we can attract, with what tools we can make guarantees. And one idea that was described in a question addressed to you is that Ukraine should focus more on Chinese investments into the Ukrainian agriculture, because Russia depends much on business with China. And if we have Chinese investors on our side, that's would be, let's say, a more balanced way to stop Russians. So maybe a few words, not about China, but generally on. We know that you also are a part of international business group, probably as for risk management in investments. What would you say?
Thanks for your question, Artur. If we could drink just glasses of beer, we can share our opinion, but I am, as a president of Ukrainian Grain Association, of course, I protect the business interests of our members. And our members, it's investors, and it's about 90% from total grain export done by our members. And of course, this company have some facilities here, and this company will stay and will continue to invest money here in Ukraine. This question, with whom we have to work, I am lucky that I am not politician, and thanks God, I am not a member of cabinet of ministers in such difficult time, and it's not my decision with whom we have to work more closely, but definitely Ukraine after this war will be more clever when we will choose our partners. It's not question about money, it's question about national security. And I'm sure we now study these lessons, and the question with whom we have to work, with China or with other partner, I think we have to regulate on a state level before we will do something, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very clear, yes. And there is a wording that's on and on. We repeat now with such, it's saying, with such friends, no enemies are needed. Yeah, so that's what we have faced in Ukraine. Yes, and of course, in future we need to think many times. With whom to do business. Yeah, correct. Thank you, Nikolay.
Thank you.
That was Nikolay Gorbachov, president of the Ukrainian Grain Association. And now I'm passing my microphone to Gennadiy Ivanov, Kronosbulkers. What about shipping, Gennadiy?
Good day to everybody. Thanks Interlegal, thanks Artur for organizing such very useful let's say webinar, because there are a lot of information flows all around, there are a lot of opinions, and it's a good way to synchronize and systemize at least try to do it. Regarding trade market, I will start my, let's say, speech from the global trade market, and then we'll go to focus on Ukraine. So after quite considerable volume of grain, cargo was cut from Black Sea, I mean export from Ukraine. The rates, freight rates in Black Sea logically went down, but in general BDI was not affected, let's say, much, because a lot of grain flows started a lot of traders changed their focus towards East Coast South America, and there is high demand for tonnage appeared, and the freight rates started to boom from that region. And a lot of owners left Black Sea region and Mediterranean, trying not to enter Black Sea, but we still can see that some export is going on from Constanța, from Burgas, and there is still demand for ships from exit area, and let's say business is there. And in terms of freight rates, let's say the same like before the war started. So the volume is small, but there is some balance between supply and demand, let's say. In generally there is a premium, for example, from such origins like Latin America, US Gulf, Middle East, Indian Ocean, this destination to Med Black Sea. Owners are asking and getting the premium. Also, we should mention that today most of owners and charters are hesitating to book any cargoes from Russian ports on forward basis, I mean, for the future crop. As the environment is cloudy regarding the sanctions that have been adopted or will be adopted to the future export of ex-Russia. Of course, the consequences of the war will be economic and trade sanctions against Russia, which are expected to change dramatically the trade routes for dry cargoes and wet cargoes, and especially for coal origins. So to conclude about the freight market, we can say that the dry bulk sector remains on the upcycle trend. Basically, we can expect that market will go up, at least not will go down, because we have less supply of tonnage. Basically, same common factors which we discussed before the war. So let's focus on Ukraine, of course. So as to the Ukrainian dry bulk operator companies, I want to mention and emphasize on this fact, because when war started, some counterparties on the market were reluctant to work with Ukrainian operators because they consider them like in risk, with zone risk. So we can say that most of them, of Ukrainian dry bulk operators, except Odessa offices, they have offices and banks outside of Ukraine. And traditionally, the business model linked to operating fleet worldwide, and not only via Black Sea. Therefore, the daily routine is not dramatically affected. Of course, despite Ukrainian ports, which are closed now. As to the staff from Odessa offices, some people left Ukraine and now scattered mostly in Europe and working remotely. Some people remain in Odessa and continue to, for example, right now in our Odessa office, we have 50% of the staff and they are sitting there. And of course, the situation is much worse for companies which are involved in the inward logistic, cargo handling, forwarders, agents, port terminals, railway. And but from other side, such companies today pay significant waste in transportation of humanitarian aid, medicine, ammunition, and essentials for Ukraine via neighbor countries. And of course, these companies really now doing a very huge job for Ukraine. And now we hear from all corners about the sanctions. And I would like to draw my attention on this fact. We heard recently that Europe imposed the sanctions for coal of Russian vessels. And usually sanctions has two sides. One side is straightforward, one side we can consider this from different angles. And myself, I have, let's say, experience with Iranian sanctions, and because shipping world faced with these sanctions and facing within the last 6-7 years, and we can consider such experience of such and consequences of such sanctions, and see whether the current sanctions on Russia may be effective. Basically, for coal of Russian flag vessels, and everything's clear, but for it's very easy to, let's say, to identify. With regard to Russian operated vessels, like it's mentioned in sanctions, it's very vague wording that does not give a clear understanding whether the charterers or ship managers should be registered in the Russian Federation, or should be citizen of Russian Federation, or should be beneficiary of the company that charters the vessel, and so on. So it's quite a difficult question how to identify such companies. And basically, the latest edition of sanctions saying that the Russian vessels will be sunk, there will be sanctions against Russian vessels, but it will be not implemented immediate sanctions for the such cargoes as coal, because coal ban, as per European Union, they confirm it should be effective from the August this year. And it's worth to mention that last year, European Union imported about 40 million of Russian coal by sea. Also, Japan announced a gradual reduction of Russian coal imports, and they don't give any specific schedule how they are going to do. Last year they did about 20 millions of import. Also, UK also saying that they will end imports of Russian coal by end of 2022. Their volume is about 1.7 million tons per year. And now the let's say the most evident substitution of such coal is low sulfur coal origin US, and now there is, let's say, discussion how to arrange logistics, and market participants are positive on Colombia, which could be as alternative for steam coal into Europe as well. Also, South Africa exporters, which are now mostly oriented on South Asia markets. Okay, based on the experience of Iranian sanctions on shipping, I think that sooner or later will be some certain list formed where the details of all companies, persons, also beneficiaries, affiliated companies associated with the Russian Federation will be there, and the same list will be checked by banks before affecting any transactions. So basically, until USA will be involved in sanctions, I mean, will arrange same like OPEC. I doubt that sanctions for which are implemented by European Union will be really efficient. More efficient sanctions could be, my opinion, is like insurance sanctions, because we heard that all of us have heard that recently the Joint Committee's circular was issued, and all territorial waters of the Russian Federation were included in the list of military zones, so-called war zone. This means that each vessel will have to pay an additional insurance premium, war risk additional premium, for entering the territorial waters of the Russian Federation. The value of this premium is set and depends on the actual risk in the moment. The amount of this premium is included in the freight and accordingly increases the cost of transportation of the cargo. For example, when Ukraine was included in such zone of military risk in February, the amount of the such premium was about $3,000 per week for 7 days. With the outbreak of hostilities, the ships stuck in Ukrainian ports, the value of same insurance premium increased up to $250,000 per week. And this premium is a percentage of the insured value of the vessels, which varies depending on the size of the vessel, age, technical condition, etc. So how realistic insurance premium for entering the Russian Federation will become, will be announced, will depend on the size of the premium itself. And for example, if it will be 3,000 or 5,000, it will not affect on the cost of transportation. Today I got the updated information from insurance company, which is quite interesting. So currently, for all Russian Black Sea ports, premium is 125% for 7 days. Which means, for example, for Supramax with hauled machinery value 50 millions, such premium is about 185,000 per week, which gives about 3.5 extra, $3.5 extra on top of the freight. So basically, it's quite a considerable amount. It's quite considerable amount, but we'll see how it will be efficient. So the conclusion is that nowadays, if vessel calling, let's say, Constanza and Burgas ports and the Russian ports, the difference $3.5 for the freight. Also, this aiding Russia to the war zone is very important because in terms of sanctions, in terms of losing competitiveness, because some ship owners have a policy not to enter the officially declared military zones at all, and from our experience. So the number of ships which can call Russian ports would be less than usually, and it also may cause the increase of freight rates, and accordingly the increase in the cost of export transportation. And regarding the vessels which are stuck in Ukrainian ports, I understood that some foreign crew was changed for Ukrainian ones and was evacuated. And vessels are forced now to use fresh water, fuel, and products as economically as possible, because vessels can produce fresh water only when they are on the way while moving. Also, it's possible that on some ships the stocks of food, water, and fuel are approaching critically low values. Also, I would like to touch this matter that on some vessels which before 24 February they were loaded by grain, and now we have some vessels are partly loaded by grain, and so this grain most probably was not fumigated, and when we face to let's say when the blockade will start, we can face the situation that some part of grain could be damaged as well. And basically that's all that I wanted to say. And
that's enough, Gena.
Yeah, I think because we have some limit of time. We have a lot of
it's not because of timing, because we prepared a few questions ourselves and a few questions from the attendees, but you managed to answer all of them during your talk. So thank you very much, because this is you touched, I think, all frequently asked questions at the moment, but I cannot let you go without a question. The question is, to your opinion, how international shipping community, I mean, most of all associations, different and organizations, how do they share their point of view related to the Black Sea? A good example is Joint War Committee circular, but you touched this base and explained how it affects the shipping in the Black Sea. What about others? Do you receive, because in the international shipping community, it's quite usual that shipping people they continue to react only on some official information, mainly to estimate risks and for doing business. Do we hear anything from international associations in shipping at all?
Actually, so far I didn't hear, but again, ship owners, okay, we have experience with such risky areas. I have experience like Iran, Yemen, and as per such experience, owners at initial stage they're scared about the calling such some ports because of different risks, but sooner or later they accept this and they consider to call this port. Even now we can see that some Greek owners and other owners, Chinese owners, they continue to call these ports because they don't consider it's somehow risky ports. And you'll see it's quite interesting when grain export will start in June, July. What will be situations there? Because now there is risk of food crisis, and I don't think that such export from Russia will be somehow restricted. My personal opinion, because they will check both different options and they will choose to save the people, let's say, because now really it's a huge problem because of this war, and all war suffering, not only Ukraine. And also today I heard I received the message from some bunker suppliers in I'm switching to bunker because all these things are related. He's saying that please in Amsterdam, in this area, please book the bunker beforehand because we have huge lack of product because of war between Russia and Ukraine. And such situation will be just deteriorating. And I doubt that will be more sanctions on top of this, except USA involvement. If USA decide to proceed further, basically they have the scheme of actions they already have ready because they use this on Iran with Iran, and they start to insert the companies from Russia affiliated to OFAC list. It will be a great problem. The problem for owners to call Russian ports.
Gennadiy, thank you very much, and we are passing the talk to Maksym. Maksym Khaulin, director of Intresco shipping. You work in a different segment of vessels, and as far as we know, you suffered a lot because you used to call smaller Ukrainian ports, especially Kherson, Mariupol, Berdyansk. What's in your sector, and what's up with your vessels, Max?
Yeah. I would like, first of all, to say thanks for the invitation to this webinar. And I was really shocked what Nikolay Gorbachov said about the harvest, you know, about this 36 million tons. And because, you know, unfortunately, this last months we're getting terrible news. Not only about the economy, but also, you know, about everything, about the people, etc. And on top of this, I would like to say, and I think Gennadiy will agree with me, the shipowners world is also divided, like, you know, all the world. So we have some shipowners who are in spite of this numerous blood and what we can see the killings of many Ukrainians, they don't hesitate to call Russian ports. There are a lot of still, unfortunately, owners who are doing this for the money and because they don't care. And of course, there is another world. I'm not speaking about our company, of course, this is without hesitation, but there are a lot of companies, big players and medium companies who consider that calling to the Russian port is should be strictly prohibited, not by the law, but I mean personally, you know, on the human side. Yes, recently, European Union and the States, they implemented a lot of various sanctions for calling Russian ports, for trading with Russian companies, for imposing a ban to call Russian-related vessels. And Gennadiy explained how we will determine this vessel, how they are Russian, by what? Of course, first of all, by UBO. But, you know, in our business, when we are chartering the vessel, we don't often really check in the ultimate beneficial owners of the vessel. Sometimes it's difficult. For example, if there is a fund or whatever, I mean, if there is a fund, how you will check that among of these, some of these people have Russian citizenship? It's difficult, to be honest. And sometimes owners do not submit the information about ultimate beneficial owner. So to check if the vessel is really Russian related is difficult. But it's possible. It's possible, and I think this is a future step of the work when the people should contribute some of their time in order to ban Russian-related vessels to call anywhere. And of course, unfortunately, we have Turkey, we have Egypt, we have North African countries, for example, in my trading area, where these vessels are still trading. We have a lot of vessels. I was thinking that Azov Sea is blocked. No. Azov Sea is not blocked. Still, a lot of Russian vessels are calling to Rostov, Temryuk, Kavkaz with switched off ice. Okay, in order they will. So when you will look on the marine traffic, you will not see that there are a lot of navigation, but there is a navigation there. There is. In respect, I would like just to say a few words about the vessels. We have about 85 vessels which are stuck in the Ukrainian ports. Unfortunately, our company has 2 vessels. One vessel is located at Pivdenny on TIS Zerno terminal, and another vessel is located in the hottest point of today is Mariupol. Maybe you also heard some news recently about Motovessel Smarta. What I recommended, and I think most of the owners did it, they have to try to connect with using the cable with a short connection, to make short connection for the electricity in order to save the bunker. This is what we did, and we managed to do at Pivdenny port. So now we don't consume any diesel oil with our generators. Of course, all the ports except Kherson, it is possible still to supply the fuel. So if you need to supply the fuel and the food, it is possible to do it. I don't know about Kherson. I have a friend over there who has a vessel. The vessel was not visited by the Russian soldiers. The vessel is just running out of fuel, okay, but there is no problem with the food, okay. The most dramatic situation is in Mariupol. I'm not talking about Berdyansk, because for Berdyansk now everybody knows. You know, the Russians tried to make this port free from the trading vessels. You know what they did, and you know what happened after. So thanks to God, they are not using this port anymore for the moment. The most dramatic situation is in Mariupol, because apart that the Mariupol is surrounded, and you know what is happening with Mariupol, with not 20,000 people dead, of course. I think the number of these people is much more, and we will know this after the war will finish. I think the number will be incredible. But just before the war, just before a few days when the war started, when our vessel arrived on the 21st of February, we noted already that the port harbor outside was already put, our army put some mines in order to protect the port. So we understand that probably it will happen something. It would happen something. So today, the port Mariupol has 6 vessels, okay, 6, and 5 vessels. The crew on 5 vessels during weekend was taken by force by Russian soldiers. They are saying this is evacuation, okay. But they are saying this because they made a video. Of course, they invited Russia 24, some other so-called dinner channels, in order to make the video like they're evacuating the crew, or Russian crew, Ukrainian crew. It was Russian crew also over there on the motor vessel Azov Concord. And probably you also know from the news about the shelling of motor vessel Asburg. Unfortunately, the rocket got exactly to the main engine room and exactly to the fuel tank. That's why the vessel fired. All the vessel was fired. The vessel, I think, is total loss today, if the vessel was insured. This is another question, which another issue which I'm going to tell about the insurance in the Ukrainian ports. And the vessel was fired 1 week ago. So when they evacuated the Asburg crew was on another vessel, because 1 week ago, when it was a fire on motor vessel Asburg, Ukrainian army saved the crew. Actually, they come on the pilot boat from the sea and they saved the crew. And it was one guy who was injured. They put him to their own clinic, to the hospital, you know, army hospital there. So, and it was Ukrainian army. So after 1 week, when they were so-called evacuating the crews, they make a video like they're evacuating also Asburg crew, at this moment that they're fighting with the fire, but it's already 1 week past. So I mean, usual propaganda. So today, the crew for all the crews from the 5 vessels, as we understand, are located at Donetsk, and unfortunately, their future fortune is not clear. So we are pushing via different channel in order that the Ukrainian crew will be released to Ukraine, but most probably our Ukrainian crew will be sent to Rostov or Sochi. We don't know yet. As you know, Russian army likes Ukrainian crew, in brackets, to use them for exchange, with their soldiers. So maybe they will use our crew for exchange. We don't know. It was before the evacuation of the crew, during 3 weeks, all the vessels, because they were located in the port, were under the artillery attack all the time. Bombs, rockets, mines, everything. Some of the vessels were lucky, some of the vessels were not lucky. Our vessel also sustained some damage. Not really damage which is affecting the seaworthiness, but also, but it's like 3 weeks, the crew with the foreign flag vessels, was under the terror. They were living in the shelter, in the engine room, all this basically 1 month. So today, only 1 vessel called Tsarevich the crew is not evacuated, because this area is close to Azov shipyard, where the fighting is still going on. And I can tell you, not 100%, of course, like Aristovich, but I can tell you that, of course, minimum 30% of Mariupol is under Ukrainian army control. This is clear. The Mariupol port is not fully also under control of the Russian army. Azov shipyard is not under control of the Russia. There are some, places, well, because they're saying now, Mariupol is under our control. Of course, it's not. So until now, the crew from the vessel Tsarevich is not evacuated because there is still some fighting over there. About the insurance, this is very important issue for all of the ship owners who has their vessels in Ukraine, because today, in order to protect your property, you have to organize extra war risk insurance. And unfortunately, in most of the cases, this kind of insurance is rejected. So, for example, when your vessel come to the Ukrainian port, it was insured. Then maybe you got some extension and you pay for this incredible money, very similar to what Gennadiy told when you are calling to Russia, like 1.5%, 2%. But now, in most cases, the insurance companies, they don't confirm to place the cover for extra days. So I think that most of the vessels, for example, in Mariupol, they don't have any cover, any insurance cover. This is also the reason how to handle the transportation of the cargo from Ukraine today. Because as Nikolay told, the only hubs we have is Reni, Ismail, and Kilia. I can't say anything about Uzdunaysk, because Uzdunaysk is the anchorage port. I know that Transship is doing something in this port, but I don't know, to be honest. So I'm speaking now about the land, the ports which are approached from the land. We have a lot of today requests for transportation of especially grain cargoes from these ports. But what is the problem today in order to call the Ukrainian ports on Dnieper River? The first problem is, of course, because we are Ukrainian operators, we have Ukrainian crew, is the issue with a border, how to say in English, with the local authorities in order to clear the crew for departure. So this is a question. If, for example, some of your crew are ex-soldiers or whatever, of course they can be mobilized. And today to find a new crew is practically impossible. So this is the first problem, which is today more or less can be solved, because our government finally understood that they cannot mobilize everybody, that somebody should work and earn the money, you know, and bring the cash, the dollars to the country. This is, of course, our crew. Who else? The second problem is the insurance. Once the vessel is calling the ports, there is a problem with hull and machinery insurance. Unfortunately, once the vessel left Ukraine and the vessel is calling Ukraine again, for example, if it's working like Reni, Constanza, for example, you can't arrange again extra risk insurance. Yes, 2 weeks ago, it was some kind of decree from the Ministry of Infrastructure, from IMPU about some kind of guarantee letters, etc., etc. But I don't know how does it work and how is connected with the property, you know, of foreign ship owners, for example. For foreign ship owner, it is important that their own Khaulin machinery club will place the cover, or that they will be able to buy the insurance policy for extraordinary insurance, for example, from the London market. Today, this is not possible. So if your vessel is calling today Ukrainian port on Danube River, this is ship owner risk at his own responsibility. He has to understand the risk. If, for example, I mean, Khaulin machinery policy is in place. So, for example, the total loss, if the vessel will sink, if the vessel it will be collision or whatever, the policy will work. But if the vessel will be attacked by the rocket or by the mines, then it will not work. About the ports like Reni, Ismail, I would like to say a few words. Unfortunately, these ports are not ready for huge grain transshipment. Many cargo owners today, like ADM, like Cargill, like I don't know about the Bunge, big players, okay? They're trying now to, Nikolay told us that there are about 25-26 million tons in stocks, which have to be, you know, sold and shipped. Now all these companies are trying to organize delivery of by railroads, by cars to these ports, but these ports are not ready. Unfortunately, our government, and even up to now, I spoke today with some companies from Reni who are doing transshipments. They're saying that unfortunately our government is not really concentrating on this matter right now. For example, Port of Reni is running of the qualified trained personnel. They are running of special locomotives, you know, the people who knows how to connect, disconnect the wagons. To be honest, I'm more shipping guy, and it's a little bit difficult for me to understand, you know, the land situation. But he told me that many people are trying to intervene into the port, to rent the berths, to rent the equipment in order to organize something, because what is important now is the storage of the cargo and the speed of loading. This is today number one. If you don't provide a speed like 500 tons per hour, then you will not be able to move all these huge quantities. So what the people are trying to do, they are trying to move their cargoes from Kilia, Reni, and Ismail to Russe, which is the worst option, because Russe is to Constanza. Constanza today is full. Constanza today is the stocks in Constanza are full. It's very difficult for local companies there, like Kovka, for example, to receive and store the cargo. But I mean, they're trying to do it. And so for today, for Ukraine, only the Danube hub is the only place where we can transport the grain cargoes. The steel charters, the iron ore charters are trying to organize the logistic in such way that they are moving their cargoes to Galatz. They are not even thinking about Ukrainian ports, because this is impossible. Ukrainian ports on Danube River are very poor organized, unfortunately. So I think our government should spend now a lot of they should, I mean, of course, they're spending now a lot of time for the war, but I think they have also to think something about the logistic from Danube ports as the only place, where they can ship the cargoes, in order our exporters can sell the cargo, because without this money for our government, it will be difficult to survive also in the future. Also, they're paying taxes, by the way. So I think this is very important. Can say more in the future about this. What I would like also to say that during the war, we faced with many fake news, fake issues, especially the most fakest story was the mines. The mines which are in the Black Sea. We are in the Black Sea. I would like only to say that I investigated this matter myself very deeply, because I had a lot of examples, and our company and also the other ship owners, they were hesitating to call Black Sea, even Constanza, Poti, Burgas, Varna, just because they were thinking that Black Sea is full of mines. It's very dangerous to sail, in the Black Sea. Of course, everything was organized by Russian propaganda, Russian army. They intentionally brought some mines from Crimea and left them near Bosphorus, near Constanza, just in order to make the people, suspicious about the trading, just in order to, to affect. I mean, today they're doing every shit what they can do. If they can do here, they will do here. So this was one of the idea in order to harm our shipping community and to stop the trading, because they understood Bulgaria and Romania, if they cannot attack physically, they can attack, economically. Okay. Unfortunately, at the beginning, Turkish government was not really clear about these mines, but then they mobilized some minor vessels and they cleared the territory. They can very easy monitor today Black Sea by the airplanes. So this is not the story like, you sail and you don't know anything. This is not correct. Our vessels at that time received special instruction to sail with reduced speed during the night. We used Navtex and other information sources about the information for these mines, etc. I mean, we prepared ourselves, but finally the Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey, they scan the Black Sea from time to time with the airplanes, and they can easily determine the mines. When Russia understood that this is overcome by these countries. The story about the mines step by step disappeared. Of course, there are some mines which were put by Ukrainians to block the ports, but there are a lot of mines which were put by the Russian army in order to block Ukrainian ports. And to my big regret, unfortunately, nobody knows exactly today. We discussed today about this, when the deblocade of Ukrainian ports will happen. At least I'm speaking about the Black Sea, because Gennadiy is fully right. Every day will bring us a big concern about the quality of the grains which are loaded on board of the vessels. For example, our vessel, which is located at Pivdeny, the vessel loaded full cargo of soya in bulk. We even signed the bill of lading. The 24th of February was the date of departure. We should depart from Pivdeny port 2 o'clock in the night. But the departure was cancelled because already local authorities received some information, because the Russian Navy vessels already arrived. They arrived beforehand. And now we have full of cargo of soya. We are ventilating the cargo, but indeed, I think many ship owners will face with the problem that the cargo will be not only damaged, but the receivers will refuse from the cargo. So I think we will hear a lot of stories about the claims, about the arbitration, about the disputes for many of the vessels which were blocked in Ukraine. And P&I clubs will work a lot for this. Will work a lot. But the question number one today is when Ukrainian ports will be deblockaded. You know that 3 weeks ago, apart from the mines, Russia also tried to use another propaganda story that they are giving the green corridor for the vessels to leave the port, etc., etc. How you can say this in VHF, in the news everywhere, if you know that all the vessels are blocked today by the mines, not only by the Ukrainian mines, but your own mines which you put yourself. And I mean, and for example, how the vessels can leave from Mariupol and Berdyansk at that time, how the vessels can leave from Kherson and Nikolaev, because all these ports are also mined. I'm speaking about the Dnipropetrovsk channel, for example. So I mean, why you're doing this? You know why. Everything what they're doing today is you have to hear vice versa. If they're saying yes, it means no. If they're saying no, it means yes, like in Bulgaria or Greece. This ne, ohi is about the same. This is how you have to understand today the Russians. Just understand them vice versa, and it will be, it will be fine. Unfortunately, I expect a big harm to Ukrainian economy, to Ukrainian shipping, of course, the ports. And it will take a lot of time in order to I'm not speaking about the restoration of Ukrainian economy in general, I don't know, but I'm speaking about the Ukrainian ports. It will take a lot of time in order to restore everything, in order to attract again the foreign vessels to come Ukrainian ports, in order to restore the logistic, because many roads were bombed and destroyed. It's something unbelievable, something in a very big scale, but I hope that there are a lot of people like here today and many others who will definitely participate in the restoration of our company of our country, and especially the shipping infrastructure. I think we will do everything for this.
Maksym, thank you very much. It was a real case study, not a talk, but a case study from the side, let's say. Yes, thank you very much for joining our webinar today, because you see, our task was to provide reliable information for foreigners, because we have among 250 delegates today, we have, let's say, 50-50. 50% of attendees are from Ukraine, and other 50 is from outside. I would say that we received a very good input of interest from Japanese business, for example. So, and we are going to, of course, to circulate our records to a wider audience. There is a real lack of information, reliable information internationally nowadays. Maksym told about many much fake information in the media.
I can say that the ship owners can call Black Sea without any problems. They don't need to afraid about the mines. This is fully fake. And secondly, I want to say to the brokers, to ship owners, that they have to make a decision inside of their heart. Will they work today with Russian companies, and will they call or not to the Russian ports? Because sanctions are sanctions, but everything depends on the people and what they really decide, what kind of actions they decided to undertake. So I think if they want to support our country and to stop this war, which is not only the war Russian and Ukraine, it's a global war. It's the war of many things. They have to not to call Russia and not to work with Russian companies for today.
Yeah, thank you. This is a so-called, let's say, I call it reputational sanctions. It's not direct sanctions. It's because it's I would say that partly some companies are doing this, not doing business with Russian entities at all, just fearing that in future there will be records of their business relations with Russia. But some other companies stopped any business with Russian entities, just as their contribution from the bottom of their hearts into the fight with aggression. And I believe sharing the information from the side, like we are doing today, it's an important signal to ship owners, to shipping people, to logistic companies, to address not to work with Russian business anymore, because this is a challenge that, globally, not only between Ukraine and Russia. Maksym, thank you very much. We have one more speaker, Karyna Gorovaya, head of Ukrainian practice of the Interlegal law firm. How all this affected your business? What clients now request from you? What questions do they ask? Karyna, please.
Thank you, Artur. Hello to everybody. I'm really glad to see all the speakers, and thank you very much for your interesting and very useful speeches. And I'm glad to welcome all participants of the today event. Maybe I will start from the statement that regardless the military actions in Ukraine, we are working. I mean, not only foreign offices of Interlegal in Romania, Bulgaria, Georgia, Moldova, and Turkey. I also mean our head office located in Ukraine in Odessa, and I mean all the team. If we are talking about the current actual questions, cases, maybe it will not be in use, that the character of cases changed a lot. And if for example, in January, we worked on several interesting investments projects. Now they're closed for some time, and the category of issues changed. The most popular category of issues, category of cases during the match, maybe it was the request related to force majeure announcement. A lot of our clients applied to us and asked us to help them with reasonable legal announcement of force majeure on their contracts, as contracts governed Ukrainian law and English law, but related to Ukraine as well. And it should be noted that in general circumstances, in general life, according to Ukrainian law, it was a principle according to which if you have a force majeure obstacle, you should apply to the Chamber of Commerce, and you should receive an individual certificate which certifies the obstacles of force majeure. But due to invasion, due to the war, and to make this procedure less complicated, the Chamber of Commerce issued one general letter which certified the force majeure obstacles. However, it should be noted, and we said this to all our clients, that such a certificate, it's not a guarantee that you may announce a force majeure clause. It depends on the clauses of your contracts, and of course, during announcement of force majeure, we should to prove how particular obstacles are related to fulfillment, are related to impossibility to fulfill the particular contract. And of course, we should look through the terms of the contract, to the clause of the contract. And some clients thought that in case we announce a force majeure, we may terminate the contract. It isn't so according to Ukrainian law. We may postpone the fulfillment, the terms of fulfillment of the contract, but we may talk about its termination only in case the parties agreed this in the contract. And another case with contracts governed English law, which were related to Ukraine somehow. Maybe they were concluded with Ukrainian legal entities, or the territory of fulfillment was a territory of Ukraine. It should be noted that the English law has not such a category as a force majeure. But in case the parties agreed such a clause in their contract, the parties may announce the force majeure according to the terms of the contract as well. So finalizing this category of issues, we are ready to help our clients as to grant a force majeure and to help to announce a force majeure if we see that it will be granted, and if we see that it's related to the war of Ukraine, because it may be that despite the war, the contract may be fulfillment. And also, we may help if you are the party to whom was such force majeure announced. We may check, was it announced legally or not, and to help you to mitigate this issue. Another popular category of questions was related with transportation of the cargo in containers with the help of container lines. Andrii touched this topic as well, but I will show from the legal point of view. The most popular question was, all we know already is that the line carriers cancelled their calls to Ukrainian ports, and a lot of cargoes were unloaded in other ports, in transit ports, and the cargo owners should to make a decision what to do, or to receive this cargo at these ports where they were loaded, or to reissue the bill of lading, to change the port of destination, and to receive the goods there. And in this category of cases, the most popular question was, should we pay for the damage for all this period? The first and very simple answer from our side was, first of all, we should look through the terms of conditions of the line carriers, nothing new. But we also know that all line carriers provided additional information in this regard, and to help our clients, we make an article where gathered all the information concerning this issue regarding all the most popular line carriers. And you may find it on our website. And another category of questions in this regard was may we reissue the bill of lading to the same logistic company of the consignee? Will we have some risk due to this? The first and simple answer, yes, of course, it's risky. But we should understand that we are talking about different countries. We are talking about different legislations and the local rules. And in some countries, it may be that the consignee under the bill of lading may not be a foreign company, only the local company. So maybe it will not be a choice. However, we are the lawyers, and we may to help you to minimize your risks. How? First of all, we may check how it works according to the local legislation in Romania, in Turkey, and so on, in any port. The second, if you have not worked with such logistic company earlier, if you have know nothing about its reputation, we may make a short due diligence to receive information about registration of this company, and even about its reputation on the local market. And our offices, foreign offices, help us with this. And the third advice may be that, of course, you should have some legal ground. We may draft for you, and you may sign some agreement, forwarding agreement, for example, from which everybody will see that who is the cargo owner and who are the logistic operator and obligations of the each of party. It's concerning their cargo and issues related to the cargo. The third category of questions related to the arbitration. I think that many of you know that we have a big experience in resolving the dispute in arbitrations. And of course, war in Ukraine does not relate to some proceedings in BAFTA, FOSFAL, arbitration, and so on. And we continue to support our clients there. Now I'm talking about our local Ukrainian international arbitration. Some clients thought that it's a tragedy, and because of the war, the arbitration was closed, and how to be if your contract was governed to international arbitration located in Ukraine. Maybe several days arbitration was not working, but now they renewed their work, and now we have an active case in arbitration. They're ready to consider the cases, and even they're planning the oral hearings on June. So if you have a contract which, according to arbitration clause, your arbitration will be the international arbitration located in Ukraine, the war in Ukraine is not a reason to postpone this, because we should remember about the time bar as well. It's this Ukrainian international arbitration, as the other international arbitration, will issue an award which may be recognized and enforced almost in each country. So welcome. Don't wait, and don't lose the time because it may be a problem with the time bar. Maybe it's all about most popular questions related to the war situation, and talking about the common cases, I think it's related to the changing of the traffic, changing of the roads. We have a lot of requests and matters with concerning the sales and purchase of the vessels, river vessels, sea vessels, and we have as well a very big experience in such sort of cases. Please welcome, we are ready to help. And finalizing, we are working, we are alive, we continue to be useful for our clients, and we are working on the questions as related to the war and not related to the war, as under Ukrainian law and under some international law as well, with the help of our foreign offices and with the help of our associated offices all over the world. So please welcome, and thank you for your attention, and glory to Ukraine.
Karyna, thank you very much. Probably it's time to make a few conclusions. We are almost out of time. I would like to thank, first of all speakers for their contribution. Andrii, Nikolay, Gennadiy, Maksym, Karyna. It's always a pleasure to have business with you. Of course, we miss you. I mean, I'd like to have a big hug with everyone. And I'm looking forward to doing it in the near future. The business in Ukraine continues. All business people are very creative, proactive, and everybody is doing best to contribute to the Ukrainian economy. I'm very pleased about the results of our webinar, because we gave a very good snapshot. It was a very good overview of what's going on here and about challenges we faced. And I think we have to share this information among our international community, among colleagues and friends abroad, because this is all relevant information. This is all reliable information. And foreign people from other countries our advice is if you lack information, please ask information from us, because we are all reliable sources of information. And when you ask questions how to support Ukraine, how to support Ukrainian people, I would say that the best way is to give us jobs, to give us instructions, start thinking about business with Ukraine. There are many ways how to invest in Ukraine or in Ukrainian infrastructure or in Ukrainian logistics, how to trade with Ukraine. It's the best way to support Ukraine now. I was advised that we have 300 registered attendees today. We are going to send the records to everyone. Information about this webinar, it will be distributed among attendees, but also it will be in the social media. Thanks to Nikolay Gorbachov, who shared a short presentation, updated presentation. We also will circulate this presentation after the webinar to all attendees. And I think that in some time, in some weeks, we can continue, we can come again with a new stream to have another open talk on the updates in our maritime logistic sector. So thank you very much, everyone. Glory to Ukraine.
Героям слава.
Slava Ukraini!
Slava Ukraini.
Glory to Ukraine. Thank you.
Bye-bye.